I am the self-help hacker, giving you the cheat codes to life that really people aren't openly talking about. People are too caught up in talking about other people or news or weather or sports to really fathom that there's cheat codes that exist. And I am graciously giving them to anyone who has ears to hear. I'm happy to share. I would rather you know them now, early in life, instead of having to wait and live through all these failures and successes and risks to get there. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read you a quote. I just want you to hear the quote. I want you to process it. I want you to think, is this good information to live by? Does this make sense? Can I accept this as truth? That's what I want you to determine. And I'll talk to you more about that later. Here's the quote. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because love has been poured into our hearts. End quote. There you go. I mean, it's not quite Yoda, but it's a little bit Yoda in there, isn't it? A little bit. So think about that quote. How do you feel about that quote? Is that something you can agree with, that there's truth in that? Because ultimately, the concept on this is that, and just going to kind of talk you through it again, is that you can be happy through suffering, because suffering leads to endurance. So you can put up with more when you've suffered more. And that the more endurance you have, the more character you have, the more legitimate of a human being that other people respect. When you've suffered more, then you have more endurance, and then therefore people will take notice of that and realize, oh wow, I respect this person. They've been through some challenges, but I like who they are. I want to be more like that person. And that character produces hope. Hope is important. We need hope in order to live. Yes, we also need to accept certain things in life that are just delusions. That's true. But ultimately, hope is important, and hope has a major aspect in our life. It's important for us to have hope. Hope does not put us to shame. See, a lot of people live in shame now, don't they? I mean, I feel like there's so many people living in depression and anxiety, fear. So if we can have hope, and that ultimately leads us away from shame, not necessarily pride, but if we can move away from shame, ultimately that lack of shame is going to lead us closer to love, knowing how to be more receptive of love, knowing how to be more giving of love, etc. So it makes sense. So basically, if you suffer, bad things happen to you, and I've made the video before where I've pointed out why do bad things happen to good people? Well, this would be another way to answer that. But not that any of us want bad things to happen, but ultimately when they do, and we survive it, we figure out how to get through it, we earn endurance points, which in turn makes us of stronger character, which gives us hope, which leads us to more love and not shame. See, I love that. That's pretty easy to follow. And if you didn't agree with that series of events, how one thing leads to another, then I would actually find that very confusing. If for anyone to disagree with that series, that line of events, I would be confused by a person who could not plug into that and agree with it. That's how I feel. So hopefully in the first 4 minutes we've established that quote is ultimately, yeah, it's good logic. It makes a lot of sense, and it's a good guide to live by. I'm all about having quotes that help get me through and understand and navigate the world better. Okay, so with that being said, you can probably tell by the title of this video, perhaps that is not a source you want it to come from. So I did kind of jokingly mention Yoda, because it does sound a lot like Yoda would say if I would just reverse some of the words. So we can rule out Star Wars. It's not from Star Wars. Ooh, what if I did the trick where it's actually Adolf Hitler? Because, I mean, granted, he was known as one of the worst human beings in recent history, or not even recent, but when people think of Adolf Hitler, it's never good, because he did a lot of bad things, and that's an understatement. But yet still, he has some quotes that hold some merit that if you listen to his logic, say, oh yeah, that's good. He said some things that were good and that made sense and that were helpful. They had nothing to do with genocide. Nothing to do with being a very evil person, as perceived by the world as, a living antichrist. He said some things that we could follow that aren't bad. Which, where I'm leading to this is, as the title of this video explains, we have to accept truth from people we don't necessarily respect or sources we don't necessarily respect. With that being said, I know a lot of my viewers are not Christian, which is awesome. I love the fact that I'm not making videos to a bunch of Christians, as the cliche goes, preaching to the choir. And I've been open about that. And I've also been open that I'm very excited that I have many Muslim viewers. I'm so glad that you're here. It's an honor to me that you're here, because when I think of Muslim people, I think of people who are very inquisitive, seeking knowledge. So if I can be a part of that, giving you any kind of knowledge that can help you, then major compliment accepted. I'm also very aware, and part of how this series got created was because I was making videos specifically for atheists and agnostics, asking them questions about life that weren't necessarily connected specifically to God, so I could understand how they rationalize and that sort of thing. But it was never about a debate or an argument. I always ran away from that because I just wanted to see what we had in common. And I think this is an interesting one because this could be challenging. So here it is. Yes, it's from the Bible. It's specifically from the Bible. So let me read through it again, and I actually censored out a little bit of it to keep it from being obvious that it was from the Bible, but it's from Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. Here's the full quote. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. End quote. So there you go. There's the full quote. But still, even if you say, Nick, I have no interest in Christianity or religion, whatever. Okay, but still though, you can walk away from this video agreeing that why do bad things happen to good people? Because ultimately, not that we want it to happen, but suffering does lead to endurance, which leads to character, which produces hope. And hope leads us away from shame and instead leads us to love. And love's a good thing, and we all need more of it, and we all need to be giving more of it away. There you go. So ultimately, let's assume most of my viewers are not Christian, and that is my assumption, and that's good. But we can agree that we can hear something that is truth. It has value, it's good for us, but it comes from a source. We may not agree with the source, but we can still agree that that source has truth. So ultimately, what I'm getting at is this. In our lives, we are going to encounter people that maybe the person we don't actually respect. We don't even like the person. They're kind of annoying. But ultimately, they're capable of helping us if we're willing to listen to people we don't want to hear, people we don't respect. But they're still capable of sharing some credible information that will actually help us. So the folly is, and this goes back to my very first video in this series about tribalism, that we can think, I am a normal person. This person's a weirdo and I don't like them. So we can endanger ourselves of thinking this weird person that's annoying, nothing they ever say can be good because they're stupid and they're a moron. So it's a matter of the challenge being us now going through life with this new epiphany of knowledge that I'm handing to you and saying, you know what, I've been ignoring all these annoying people, but I wonder if there's something I can learn from them. Maybe they can teach me some things about life, or maybe they can teach me some skill sets. If I can get past the fact that they're annoying and I wouldn't necessarily want to hang out with them for fun, but it's a matter of being open-minded to advice and direction from people we don't want to receive direction and advice from. Because turns out, despite our instincts of tribalism, we're constantly surrounded by annoying people who ultimately have a lot to teach us if we allow them, even despite them. Maybe they don't even want to teach us this thing, but maybe we can learn from them anyway. That's the challenge. I challenge to you, to be open-minded to receiving truth and teaching from sources that you would deem as not credible, but to look past that and to still learn something from them anyway. Your comments belong right here.